She had one job: tell a story good enough to make 12 strangers forget what she had done. Not forgive, forget. Sarah Jenkins had spent months preparing for this moment, every tear rehearsed, every detail chosen, every word placed exactly where it needed to be to produce exactly one response from the people sitting in that jury box: sympathy. She had stolen $200,000. The jury would know that. The financial records were clear, the transfers were documented, the fake ledgers were in evidence. There was no version of this trial where the facts helped her. So she was not going to use facts. She was going to use something more powerful than facts: a mother's love. What she did not know, what she could not have known, was that the man sitting behind that bench had spent 26 years listening to stories exactly like hers, and he had one question ready. A question so simple, it barely sounded like a question at all. The answer destroyed everything. Sarah Jenkins was 45 years old, a bookkeeper, quiet, dependable, the kind of neighbor nobody ever worried about. For 11 years, she had worked at the same family-owned construction company. They trusted her completely, which is exactly why nobody noticed for 2 full years while she moved their money into accounts they did not know existed. $200,000. Gone. When the auditors finally found it, the trail led directly to her. Financial records, transfer logs, fake ledgers constructed with the precision of someone who had done this methodically and without hesitation. Her defense attorney looked at that evidence for a long time. Then he made a decision. He could not fight the facts, so he would bury them. On the stand, Sarah Jenkins did not defend herself. She explained herself. She told the jury about her son, Leo, 17 years old, her entire world. 3 years ago, just before the embezzlements began, Leo had been diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder: aggressive, progressive, untreatable according to every specialist she had seen in this country. They had told her gently but clearly, "Make him comfortable. Prepare yourself. There is nothing more we can do." Sarah Jenkins told the jury she refused to accept that. She spent months searching, sleepless nights, hundreds of websites, medical journals she barely understood. And then, a clinic in Switzerland, an experimental treatment, cutting edge, the only place in the world offering what Leo needed. The cost was impossible. Insurance would not cover it. She looked directly at the jury. Her voice broke. "What would any of you have done?" A pause. "I saw my son fading away. I called it borrowing. I had a plan to pay every single cent back once he was healthy." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I am not a criminal. I am a mother." The courtroom went completely silent. Several jurors had tears in their own eyes. A woman in the second row had stopped taking notes. The story was working, exactly as planned. Judd had been on the bench for 26 years. He had heard thousands of stories in that courtroom. Stories of desperation, stories of love, stories of people who had done terrible things and needed someone to understand why. He had also heard thousands of lies, and over 26 years, he had learned something that most people never understand about the way deception works. Liars do not fail because they get the big things wrong. They fail because of the small things, the details they invented without thinking, added to make the story feel more real, more human. Those details are always where the truth is sitting quietly, waiting to be found. Judd had been listening to Sarah Jenkins with his hands steepled, his face giving nothing away. When her attorney finished, the judge leaned forward. His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Mrs. Jenkins, I am very sorry for what you and your son have been through. It sounds incredibly difficult. Sarah nodded, dabbed her eyes. Thank you, Your Honor. I just have a few questions about the timeline. Of course. You mentioned Leo was diagnosed about 3 years ago. Before he got sick, what was he like? Was he active in school? A sad smile touched her lips. This was easy. Oh yes, he was so full of life, a great student. He was a gifted athlete. He was a runner. He was the star of his high school track team. The judge nodded slowly. Track? That is wonderful. The discipline required is remarkable. Sarah nodded eagerly. A judge who was listening, a judge who understood. He was so fast. Everyone said he had college potential. I imagine you went to every meet. Every single one. What was his main event? A flicker. Something crossed her face, so small, so brief, that most people in that room did not catch it. The sprints, she said, with a slight wave of her hand. You know, the running ones. The 100 meter? The 200? Maybe the 400 meter? That's a demanding race. Yes, Sarah said. Her smile was fixed now. All of those. He was great at all of them. The prosecutor leaned forward slowly. The jurors began looking back and forth between the judge and Sarah without quite understanding why. The judge picked up a pen. What was his personal best in the 400 meter? He let the question sit. A runner with college potential would surely be under 50 seconds. Do you remember? Any parent of a star athlete would know that number instantly, would have said it before the question finished. Sarah Jenkins said nothing. The silence in that courtroom was absolute. I don't recall the exact numbers. There were so many races, it's all a blur with everything that happened after. I understand, the judge said, but his expression had already changed. The gentleness, gone. What replaced it was something quieter and far more dangerous. The focused stillness of someone who has already found what they were looking for. He looked down at a piece of paper that had been sitting on his bench the entire time. Mrs. Jenkins. His voice carried a different weight now. I found it strange that a boy with a severe neurological disorder was simultaneously a star sprinter. So I asked my clerk to do something very simple. He held up the paper. This is a printout from your son's high school athletic association website. Official rosters, official records, 4 complete years of data. He looked directly at her. Your son, Leo Jenkins, is indeed a gifted athlete. But according to this official record, he has never run track. Not one meet, not one race, not one day. He is the starting goalkeeper for the varsity soccer team, a position he has held for 3 consecutive seasons, including this past year. The gasp that moved through that courtroom was immediate. Jurors who had been crying moments earlier now stared at Sarah Jenkins with something else entirely in their eyes. She sat completely still. The judge continued. The court also subpoenaed your complete financial records covering the period of the alleged diagnosis. He opens a thick file. There are no payments to any clinic in Switzerland, no medical transfers, no treatment invoices, no international wire transfers to any medical facility, anywhere. There are, however, weekly wire transfers to offshore sports betting accounts. There is a down payment on a luxury sports car, and there are charges for a 2-week Caribbean vacation, a trip you took the same month you told your employer you were in Switzerland with Leo for his first round of treatment. He closed the file. The sound of it landed in the silence like a gavel strike. Mrs. Jenkins, your son's medical condition was a lie. The clinic in Switzerland was a lie. The story you told this court, under oath, was a lie. Sarah Jenkins sat in the witness stand and said nothing because there was nothing left. The story she had built so carefully, every rehearsed tear, every chosen detail, every calculated moment of grief, had been taken apart by a man who had simply asked what event her son ran in a sport he had never played. The jury was out for less than an hour, guilty on all counts. And because Sarah Jenkins had constructed a false story and delivered it under oath to a court of law, she now faced a second set of charges: perjury, a crime against the justice system itself. There is a particular kind of confidence in believing you can lie to a judge, not arrogance exactly, something more specific. The belief that a powerful enough story can override a careful enough mind, that emotion will always beat evidence, that if you make someone feel enough, feel deeply enough, feel the right things in the right order, they will stop looking for the seams. Sarah Jenkins gave her son a sport he had never played. She made him a runner because her story needed him to have lost something physical, something visible, something a jury could picture and grieve. She did not think anyone would check. She sat in that courtroom and looked at Judge Miller the way performers look at an audience. She did not understand that he was not watching her performance. He was listening for the detail that did not fit. The word added not because it was true, but because it made the story feel more real. And when he found it, when a boy who had never run track became a star sprinter in the span of one answer, he already knew everything else would follow. In a courtroom, a powerful story can move people to tears. It can make a crime look like necessity, a theft look like love, a lie look like the only option. But a courtroom is also the one place where the smallest true detail will always outlast the largest false one. Sarah Jenkins learned that in the silence that followed one question about a race her son had never run.